While we're in here, we're going to go ahead and rework these preset keys. I don't have any spare ones of these. This cancel key is broken, but it looks like it's still plenty functional. I went ahead and numbered these just because I don't remember the order in which they were put, so you might want to make some sort of annotation on these pieces. I did with a black magic marker. I went ahead and took all of the preset keys out. This is the mechanism that latches the keys. This is simply a bar that pivots on this bar, okay? The springs are up under here where you can't really see them too good. But what needs to happen is this thing needs to bounce back very easily. There's a little bearing on this one side that can be easily reached to be lubricated. There's the bearing down there. A drop of Hammond oil on that will work wonders, as well as on the other side there's one that's kind of hidden up underneath this block. What you're going to want to do is get all of the dried grease off of this thing. Some of them I've seen are caked pretty severely. This is really the one that's most important to be clean. The one on the bottom really doesn't make any difference, so just make sure this top one is nice and clean, and you're going to want to relubricate it with something like your lithium grease or lubriplate or something like that, but don't put much on there. This is how the cancel key works. All the cancel key does is push that top bar over and the spring pulls it back. Simple as that. It's good to put a little touch of lubrication on top of that bar. Here's one of the latching keys in place. It stays in place until the cancel key pushes it out. You will run into some keys that will not engage properly. If they don't engage at the gentle touch, you're going to want to make an adjustment before you put it back together again. It's a very simple matter of taking this and bending it ever so slightly. That's it. The slightest of touch and she engages beautifully, smoothly, just like new. This is rather important. You'll notice at the back side of these springs there's two little holes. Those two little holes fit into corresponding pins. Once you slide your key into place, two things. You want to make sure that this spring goes underneath the washer. You also want to make sure that you use very gentle pressure when you're tightening this thing. And you're going to want to wiggle this thing ever so slightly as you're tightening the screw, and feel when those pins engage the holes. It'll stop wiggling. Then you can tighten it. Be careful. What can happen is if you don't make those holes engage, the pins will miss the hole. If you tighten the screws, it will bend your spring and it'll never work right. You from the rear, remember that you're pretty much doing this by feel, so you won't even be able to see what you're doing. There's the pins that have to mate with those holes. You want to make sure that this spring goes underneath the washer, and you don't want to drop your wrenches. It's a matter of very gently, very slowly tightening that screw while you're wiggling the spring, and it will all of a sudden just kind of click into place. Just like that. It's locked into place. Another little turn and you can see there's the pins and the holes mated and it's locked in place. Now we've got the upper manual done. I recommend before you go any further, if you kind of snug these down as you went, I would go ahead and run down the entire row. On this particular organ I went ahead and took every single key off. It turned out that I had to replace 2/3 of the keys that were on there, plus several of the preset keys, because they were all broken, and you couldn't really see that they were broken until you physically took the key out. For example, keys like this, you can see that it's actually separated in the back. It's not going to be long before that key is sitting in your lap. Looking at it, there's really no way that you can tell until you take it out and look at it. So, you went this far to get this thing apart, you might as well take all the keys out. Plus it's easier to clean them, and then you can take a look at your key combs and make sure those are looking nice. So again, I would go ahead and run down the entire row with a wrench and make sure that they're all adequately snug, and just do not over tighten the screws. Snug them down, that's tight enough. You strip one of those screws out, you're pretty much sunk. 4 bolts that are holding the upper and lower keyboard. 2 of the 4 bolts are accessible from the back here. There's one. I can't really see it. This one on the other side, it's easier to see. There's the other one. The other 2 are located up underneath. Can't really see them until you go up under. It's the 7/16 hex right there, and there's another one on the other side. So there's the 4 bolts that have to be taken off. Okay, now upper keyboard can just be tilted away from the lower part. Get yourself a couple of blocks of wood and just wedge them in there enough to support this part of the keyboard, and it'll stay. What you're going to find is that you're not going to be able to really see these screws very easily. You're going to have to do a lot of this by feel.